Hello, and welcome to IB Pulse, our regular video news show where we talk about the hottest and most important topics in the digital advertising ecosystem today. This afternoon, we're going to be discussing one of the most important channels in all of media, digital video, and more specifically, CTV streaming. We just released our 2025 Digital Video Ad Spend and Strategy Report, and this topic is not only hot off the presses, but hot in terms of the talking ecosystem right now. I'm very excited to introduce two of my guests, Amy Lehman, who is the Senior Vice President of Advertising Tech Platforms at Disney. Hello, Amy, and thanks for being here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Chris.
Of course, we're super excited to have you. And is it fair to say my new friend, Dan Mouradian, who I've gotten to know now across multiple meetings and gatherings, and who is the Senior Vice President and Global Client Solutions at Innovid. Welcome, Mr. Mouradian.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris, and thanks, Amy, for letting me tag along to the party.
Glad to have you. So, we're going to talk about three topics today: how CTV streaming platforms such as Disney are democratizing access for small to medium-sized brands and advertisers. Um, the very important new success metric or metrics, if you will, regarding business outcomes within CTV. And I want to kick off with this topic that I found absolutely fascinating around the definition. I'm going to do the air quotes of TV. And I'm going to start with you, Amy, because I loved this quote that you said in the pregame, which was, quote, TV is a behavior, not a box. And that's the first time I've ever heard somebody put it that way. And I think it's fascinating. So I was hoping we could kick it off by you kind of unpacking what you mean by TV is a behavior, not a box.
So, what we've really started to see over the past 5 or 6 years is that every single television that is getting shipped out of the store comes with fully integrated internet access and the ability for a consumer to download their apps on the television. And when you think about consumer behavior, the television is an experience. It's the programming, it's the premium content, it's the premium storytelling. And consumers can watch television content on a myriad of devices. The television itself is the 60-inch device that's sitting on the screen in the living room. But the behavior of watching television isn't just tied to that screen in your living room. It's happening on the train, it's happening on mobile devices, it's happening on airplanes, on your tablet. And so when we think about buying TV, are you buying the device or are you buying the premium content and storytelling?
Dan, I'm pretty sure you have some thoughts on that. What do you say, my
Yeah,
friend?
I love the definition of television that way. I mean, if you ask anybody how they watch TV, I'm sure you're going to get as many answers as many people you ask. I can tell you, like from my perspective, watching TV for my 95-year-old grandfather, it's on his recliner and it's probably linear. For my 24-year-old daughter, watching TV is on her laptop in her bed, in her bedroom. For my 13-year-old daughter, it's on her tablet as she walks around my house. It's no longer tethered. The definition shouldn't be tethered to the screen in the way it has been historically. It's defined by attention, by relevance, by engagement. It's definitely not the hardware anymore. And your recent report, Chris, Digital Video Ad Spend and Strategy, highlights how buyers care much less about where the content is consumed, like the actual device they're consuming it on, and more about what the content is. So, if you're a viewer and you're watching ESPN on CTV because you missed the game and you want to catch SportsCenter, great. Or it's Disney Plus on your phone at a bus stop because who wants to ride a bus without watching something anymore? That's all part of TV. And I think I love the new definition of how TV is being redefined.
Yeah, it's interesting. First of all, I agree 100% with both of you. And I think I kind of had the aha moment with this about 2 years ago, I have about an hour bus ride home, and there was a gentleman sitting next to me who was on his phone watching The Bear. And I thought to myself, oh, I know that episode. That's a great episode. And I realized that that engagement moment that happened there for me was it doesn't matter where I saw it. The bear has made a connection with me, regardless of screen. And I know the show and I love the show. And that type of engagement is what the advertisers are trying to capture, right? And the fact that it captured me on a bus after a long day home, and it immediately brought back the emotion of watching the show, to me, is what the advertisers are trying to capture. And it didn't distinguish for me between what device it was. So I think, yeah, I think as an industry, if we can start, if we can get all folks thinking that way, I think it'll be a huge step forward. It brings me to my question now. I'm going to go back to you, Amy. Um, how does that translate practically for advertisers on your platform? For example, are you seeing different engagement patterns across devices, or should we just focus on the engagement level that it brings, regardless of how the person is watching it?
Absolutely. And I think I do want to take a step back and just look at the industry as a whole and
Yeah,
how Disney has made monumental efforts in solving the fragmentation problem through our unified ad platform. And that's difficult work for folks that have been in the streaming business for decades plus. Fragmentation problem is real. And
yep,
being able to understand your audiences and how they watch your content across a myriad of devices, starting on one platform, right? Pausing and then continuing to watch on a different platform later is difficult to achieve.
yep,
And being able to tie that together for an advertiser, right, to manage frequency across that entire spectrum of devices and platforms and content is difficult to do. And this is where we've really made significant investments in our platform to achieve that, so that a marketer can reach their defined audiences at scale across all of these different contextual moments, right? Whether it's live sports, whether it's, deep into The Bear, season
yep,
3, whether it's watching, family content on Disney Plus, and being able to bring that all together to not only integrate an advertiser's moment into that unique storytelling opportunity or that fan moment, but then to be able to tie that to outcomes, right?
yep.
And performance and how we achieve advertiser objectives through that process. And I think that's a very unique approach that we've been able to solve for from a platform perspective at Disney.
Now, Dan, that dips its toe into your space
Yeah.
as a company under the hood that stitches all these things together. How are you managing that? How are you guys solving that for clients like Disney?
Yeah, I mean, for advertisers and for platforms, it means thinking beyond just where their ad shows up. It's about focusing on how it shows up. So, just from a technical perspective, device level decisioning and creative strategies can become really critical. The same ad doesn't work the same way everywhere. If you're on a CTV, you might have a call to action that is, scanning a QR code and shopping now. Whereas on mobile, that doesn't work at all because you can't scan your phone with your phone. So you
Yeah,
have to change the call to action, and a device level targeting strategy or decisioning within Innovid's platform allows you to do that. So on mobile, that same ad shows up. It says tap here to learn more. On desktop, it's click to complete or click for more information, or things like that. And then on CTV, of course, you have a QR code. That from a technical perspective is things like dynamic creative, which ensures that a message doesn't just reach the viewer, but it also speaks the language, in this case, based on the device they're on, or the moment that they're in, or the mindset. There's a lot of different triggers that we can use to add personalization to a piece of creative. Again, the first consideration when you're talking about CTV has to be, if we all agree that the behavior is what we said in the beginning, that's something you have to consider. But with the right tech, marketers can meet viewers in that behavior with relevance and precision at scale. Disney's made it very easy to activate and to have access to all of that inventory. The consumer makes a choice about where they consume it. When we get to serve an ad, we have to make sure that it's relevant in the context of the viewer. And again, there's technical solutions to this, like dynamic creative, but that's just a really tactical way to think about how that needs to be considered in a world that is now sort of omni-channel, ever-present, a behavioral type of activity rather than a device or a screen, which television has classically been defined as. But as we're in the midst of a redefinition period, that's one of the great ways to kind of approach doing that.
Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying, because that itself, and what Amy alluded to, how, in Disney's part, that the unified ad platform is such a huge achievement. So that's one, yes. I'm like, you can't underestimate that statement. And the way I'm thinking about it is, okay, you have what they've achieved. Then we get into, Dan, what you've been talking about and how complex that is on its own. And we haven't even talked about
I
things.
promise we make it really easy.
Oh, I'm sure. No, absolutely. Otherwise, Disney wouldn't be working with you. You guys do it well. But we released a paper, and I didn't mean to plug this, but I'm going to plug it. We released a paper earlier this week, or maybe last week, called Unified Media Planning Playbook across CTV, OLV, social video, and FAST. And the challenges that come from the different devices, right? You have the IP address, which is on the connected television. You have the ad ID, which is on the mobile device. The same type of things happen with the tablet. So just from a basic tracking standpoint, just stitching together those different device signals are different, right? So it's not like, so first it's like, let's talk about the device that the person is on, and then how you even ad serve to that, right? And then the different creative sizes. So yeah, I mean, it's a monumental achievement to be able to deliver that for advertisers. And I applaud both of you for being able to help make.
I mean, the beauty is truly in the elegance, in terms of like our ability to do this at scale,
Yeah,
across the fragmented ecosystem that is CTV, in a single tag. I mean, that's the reality. We send one tag, and it handles the decisioning from a dynamic creative perspective. One thing we haven't talked about in terms of fragmentation is the other kinds of devices
right.
that bring the internet to a television, dongles and plugins and
Yep.
all different things where you can then download the apps, and consume the content. That choice is another choice consumers make. So I mean, from where I sit, I don't see the fragmentation going away. You can look at and we publish a benchmarks report. You can look at this kind of data, but like what we see from not just the screen, but also the device and the publishers is just it's not going to be like mobile where there's two.
Got it.
It's not going to be like desktop where there's one real dominant platform. TV is and will stay fragmented.
Yeah, and that brings me back. It reminds me again of what we talked about in the beginning, where these kind of old definitions need to change, need to evolve. And I think it's obviously the way we define TV needs to change. And then the way that we think about how to track and measure and ad serve needs to change as well. It's no longer a straight line. It's no longer linear, which is pretty obvious. Another thing, Amy, I want to come back to you, that Disney achieved in the last couple of years is the launching of the self-serve ad platform. And the reason I come up with that, or bringing that up now, is because, again, that's a huge achievement. And that got a portion of gets the whole industry, makes it easier for the entire industry, from small to large advertisers. but it really helped the small and medium-sized businesses get over a major hurdle, which is enabling them to have access to content such as across the Disney platforms, like the highest quality type of content that is out there on the big screen, if you will. And of course, it goes into the other screens as well. Our new study revealed the importance of business outcomes for CTV. When I hear business outcomes, one of the first things that comes to my mind are these small to mid-sized brands. They tend to be very performance driven. They tend to be very bottom funnel, which means that Disney, with their new activation platform, has to and thus enables the smaller players to be on Disney's platforms, um, which means that puts the onus on Disney to drive business outcomes. So my first question is, Amy, can you just give a little bit of background on what needed to be easier, how it needed to be easier for small to mid-sized brands in terms of being able to advertise within major networks and streamers such as yours?
Absolutely. So I think one of our core tenets for our platform is really centered around automation, right?
Yep.
Um, Automation is key, and whether that's being able to create environments where small to medium-sized businesses or indie agencies can come in and launch their own campaigns directly on our platform, or whether that's through programmatic channels and direct integrations with major DSPs like we've done with Drax, with Amazon DSP, Trade Desk, and DV360. Whether that's, future direct integrations, into agency buying platforms. From our perspective, the democratization and leveraging automation, right, to support frictionless buying is just a core tenet of our platform. So Disney Campaign Manager, which is our self-service platform, we launched a couple years ago in partnership with Dan Ads. We have now fully integrated that as a core part of our platform. And, the belief is that being able to provide tools for planning, buying, measurement, and the integration of capabilities like we've done with Compass, right, which brings outcome-based measurement directly to the advertisers and the agencies. And we've signed up multiple holdcos. We have key partnerships with Innovid, Cint, and others to be able to provide outcome-based measurement for planning and buying, as well as campaign optimization and post-campaign analysis, is critical for the success of the industry. And we fully believe that by creating unique storytelling experiences and premium content, that in and of itself, right, creates environments that lead to better outcomes and performance for marketers. I think that's also part of our core tenets. When you couple that with the context of what the consumer is watching, you couple that with personalization, the premium experiences that the consumer has while watching Disney Plus. It's non-disruptive, right? It's high quality. That in and of itself also leads to performance. But you have to create that measurability. You have to create those integrations. We have our clean room, which is critical in terms of being able to aggregate and identify opportunities, right, for audience segmentation and performance on the back end.
So Dan, this is again where Innovid's tech becomes crucial. And so how are you bridging that gap between the CTV ad exposure and the measurable business outcomes for your clients?
Yeah, so I mean, Innovid XP is our measurement, attribution, and outcomes product.
Okay.
It's built to connect the dots between ad exposure and real world business outcomes. As an independent omnichannel ad server, we don't own media, and that gives us an unbiased and holistic view of performance across platforms, including CTV, of course. Because we're an ad server, the primary capability that XP is built on is the ad serving data. So it's not a pixel, there's no retrafficking of tags. It's not just about impressions, views, or clicks or completions anymore. CTV is very different. There's no mouse, there's no browser. You have to have an attribution product if you're going to understand an outcome, even one that exists on a website, which has been a more measurable place than maybe something like an offline sales or something like that. There's high organic completion rates. Again, when you think about some of the classic digital success metrics, completion, click, conversion on a site, none of those really exist in CTV.
Right.
So you have to have something you have to have an attribution solution in place. And I'll be honest, Disney has some of the best content on streaming platforms. That's me fanboying out over it. But you also have to hand it to them, not just for the content or the accessibility to that content that they bring through Ad Manager. They don't just sell the ads and walk away. So they have really embraced this shift by empowering advertisers and their entire ad sales team, by the way, with real-time third-party independent metrics that are powered by our XP platform. We've seen Disney share real-time results across verticals, from insurance brands tracking policy quotes, the outcome, or startups seeing QR scans and site visits, the outcome that they care about, to retailers measuring ROAS at the individual product level, the outcome that they care about. Yeah. That level of transparency is really rare, and it builds an incredible amount of trust with the advertisers who buy that media, which again is some of the best content that's out there.
Yeah, you guys are so speaking the right language, because our study found that the number one reason that buyers end relationships or don't increase dollar investment with CTV streaming platforms is the failure to deliver business outcomes. And I don't mean from a proving standpoint. I mean, like, they did not deliver the business outcomes that the brand needed. So this is absolutely incredibly important. So Dan, our study also found that about 83% of advertisers, agencies and brands, said that although they're activating programmatically, whether that's the way they've done for years across the DSPs, or they're using, for example, Disney's self-serve ad platform, Disney Campaign Manager, that they still want help, assistance, and guidance from the sell side on that activation. And our interpretation of that goes from tech specs all the way to strategy. So I was wondering if you could comment on that from your perspective, why that research point makes sense.
Yes, I mean, I think it's really important that we kind of understand the help in that sentence.
Yep.
If we look at it from a technical perspective, Innovid supports advertisers on the buy side for the sell side a couple of different ways. I mentioned with dynamic creative earlier, the sort of single tag that handles some of the decisioning that goes along with it. That's an efficiency that benefits trafficking and ad operations teams. Another place, because of the fragmentation in CTV, that we see advertisers come to us with challenges is around tag acceptance and spec compliance. So within Innovid's platform, we're working with an advertiser, or the sell side is supporting or leveraging our platform to deliver that experience for an advertiser. All we need is one single ad. That's it. We need a 15-second spot or a 30-second spot, whatever the media is that they're buying. You give me one ad. Once it lands in Innovid's platform, we automatically encode that asset up to 90 different times. The reason we do that is because we believe in the best quality needs to show up. Quality is so important. It's always important, be clear, across all different kinds of media. But when it's on an 85-inch 4K television in your room and you're streaming the bear and you go from ad break from content to ad break, if that connection is broken and it's not seamless, it takes the user out of the experience. it's not a great experience if you see a buffering wheel or something like that. So Innovid's platform, again, is purpose built for CTV ad delivery, both live and streaming environments on CTV. So again, those encodings are a technical solution. It's all wrapped in that single ad tag I talked about a moment ago. When an impression is called for on Innovid servers, we say, who's this publisher? The customer, the user is watching on this kind of television, and it's this platform, and their internet connection looks like this. Here's the best quality asset we can give for that experience so that we don't break the experience that the customer has while they're streaming. And we think that's really, really important, because the last thing we want to do is be more interruptive. Again, that's looking at this challenge or the help that a marketer or a platform might need from a technical perspective. I'm going to ask Amy to kind of cover maybe some of the other bases in terms of maybe account and structure. I mentioned earlier how great and transparent the Disney sales team is, but I think there's more to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that while the technical piece is absolutely hard, right, and it is complex, that's where I think the expertise of the teams at Disney can really help bridge the gap, right? So while we absolutely focus on automation, right, as a core underpinning for how ads are transacted, you can't underestimate the value of having the strategic partnership to drive insights and drive results for our customers and our advertisers. So while we certainly will focus on automation, that just makes the strategy piece even more critical. The ability to actually transact via biddable programmatic into live sporting events, right, is a critical capability. And then you tie that in with personalized ad creative, right? And those personalized second screen experiences that drive even further engagement and performance. Technically, that's very challenging. But being able to tie that together with strategy, the insights that can be garnered from the platform, whether that's through the partnership with Innovid or some of the other unique insights that we have from the Disney platform, is really key. And that, to me, those relationships only grow deeper and stronger as we're able to focus more on strategy and less on the operational kind of churn that happens with just trying to get ads working on CTV, which, it's still operationally challenging.
Yeah, and it's what's interesting to me about that is you have the tech complexity, which is so difficult on its own, as you both mentioned. And then, of course, and for years, the strategy component, it can be just as complex and is just as important. My theory now is that because consumer behavior is changing so quickly and is unpredictable at times, that means that I would think that the buyers are more and more going to need to come to the sellers who know their consumers very well because they interact with your content and shows to have strategy discussions. Like, how are people watching your programs right now? Are you seeing different things across different devices? Tell me about different types of shows, live events versus live sports versus pre-programmed. So I would think that the strategy discussion is just going to continue because they need you to help figure out how to best serve the right ad to the right people at the right time. Otherwise, the business outcomes are not going to handle. Guys, this has been absolutely fascinating. Having this discussion with you and looking under the hood of what each of you are doing made me realize that both of your companies are well poised to address what the research study that we just released says about the needs from the buy side and where they are headed. This was a great conversation. I think we're seeing a future where TV isn't just more accessible, it's more accountable, i.e., business outcomes. I want to say thank you to my guests, Amy and Dan, for joining me here today. And I want to say thank you to our viewers and listeners for leaning in. This has been an IAB Pulse Let's Chat. and we will see you soon on the next episode. Thank you.